Morning, morning everyone. So moving forward with our schedule, it's an honor to be here in such a relevant event like Innovation Experience, and I'm gonna be dealing with the permits, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, those new technologies that are arising and their effect on society. So our panel is quite rich. We have many participants from different parts of the ecosystem. So again, different parts of the ecosystems. I'm going to ask you to introduce yourselves quickly so that we can start this panel, okay? Okay, Vanessa, can you introduce yourself? Translation is not getting the audio. I apologize. All right, morning. Just a moment, guys. They're experiencing some technical issues. All right, guys, let's get back to our schedule. It's a pleasure to be here at Innovation Experience. We're going to be dealing with payments, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, those new technologies that have been presenting benefits to society. And this is a very diversified panel with specialists from many parts of the ecosystem. So I believe it's going to be a rich and relevant debate for all. So can you please introduce yourselves quickly with your name, your role, so that we can actually start the debate afterwards, okay? Vanessa, please. Morning, everyone. My name is Vanessa. I'm a founder in the lawyer firm. We work with payments for many years. We have been debating crypto assets for a while now. Morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the event's organizers for participation. My name is Rodrigo Soeiro. I'm the co-founder and CEO of MONNOS. We are a crypto bank. So we provide from the credit card to payments or transactions, the opportunities of following investors involving NFTs, and we're actually investing in crypto as a service, which is very much in line with the panel's theme, which is crypto as a payment method. Morning, everyone. I'm Aureo Ribeiro. I'm a federal congressman. I'm my fourth term, and I'm the author of a bill regulating crypto assets and cryptocurrencies in Brazil. The bill was voted at the Senate, Congress, and it's again in Congress to be voted again and to be put in force crypto assets in Brazil. Rodrigo, my name is Rodrigo Ikegaya. I'm the director of products Foxbit. It's a company that since 2014 has been dealing with crypto assets, and it's a company that had grew along with the market. So we started providing with negotiation crypto assets for individuals. And now we're coming up with solutions and services, NFTs, and totemization process so that companies can come up with their own processes for that. So all of us know that the financial industry in Brazil and society as a whole has been becoming digital quite quickly. So online transactions and mobile usage is a part of our daily lives. So our everyday use overcomes any other forms of usage, and this has become a reality. So we have digital portfolios and online portfolios to use your payments. Pix has been growing pretty fast and speeding up our digitalization process. We're talking about 90 million transactions a day, 1 trillion reais moved every month, and it has been growing over time. The credit cards are still used a lot, and so we're not only talking about changes in habits and changes of habits, but also incorporating new users including banks, benefits, but also what we are lacking for society as a whole. And on the other hand, we see companies involved with digital currencies, and we see this reaction to the growth of cryptocurrencies. So as to try to and organize that. So due to this digitalization process in Brazil, we have a cryptocurrency. Um, we have a cryptocurrency in Brazil. So thus our debate in Brazilian society and in some sectors are moving towards that. So public transportation, for instance, is cashless. And many others like e-commerce have also gone cashless. So it's important for us to understand where we're going, what kind of benefits cryptocurrencies is presenting. So you have investments, payments, and many other features. So to start this debate, I want to do this differently. I would like to hear from Congressman Aldo to hear how the regulations are. So how is it working in Congress? Because this might be the news here, and it's going to help us having a background, a more structured background, so that cryptocurrencies can grow in Brazil. Please, Congressman. First of all, I would like to thank you for the invitation for being part of this panel. So we presented to Congress a bill to regulate crypto assets in Brazil. Our largest struggle was present to in the parliament the need to regulate crypto assets when people didn't even know what a crypto asset was back in 2015. Was it a currency? What did you use it for? It was hard to talk about Bitcoin at Congress because they didn't know if it was food, it was a beverage, what the hell it was. So we started divulging those information, talking about it, and we invited all the relevant authorities to be a part of this debate. We invited the central bank, COAF, CVM, the Treasury, the federal police. So at first we faced some resistance, believing that this market would self-regulate in a very simple and agile way. So we saw this market developing and progressing. Brazil was very fast in terms of digital assets. And more over time, we saw this need of telling things apart. So people have used complained that due to the lack of a legal framework. So our progress started being debated as something that would involve a lot of people. And then we migrated this project. This project was evolving over time with a lot of debates and researches and visiting other countries. So we got some experiences of noticing this market growing overseas. And we got to this text, which is innovative. And the regulation that we're doing in Brazil is going to work for the entire world. So we have the chance to debate with other countries, and our text is a law per se is one of that is best accepted in the world. So we still need to adjust some things and amend some things, but the greatest progress that I felt is the acknowledgement of a digital asset. After that is having this legal background for those transactions, but also an economic safety. Because if you don't have those regulations, you can have a new minister, and he could say that we're not going to use this law anymore. So we we should be expecting this from the government. So we're not doing this so to have interest. We're doing that because we want to be acknowledged. So acknowledged in terms of transactions, opening Brazil to the world, having new investors, being more attractive so that people can invest with the legal and economic safety that they need to provide new opportunities so that you can make the most of Brazilian creativity. And I have visited Dubai and Singapore, and you see so many Brazilians working for the local governments with their creativity and their skills. And we, who are Brazilians, we're not making the most of this labor force. So it's good to see that it's important to say that we're not appreciating our talents in terms of technology. So I'm pretty sure that PICs have evolved a lot in Brazil and some companies were not able to progress with that technology. Why is that? Because when we have the legal framework here in Brazil, we're gonna have this option of having the entire world looking at us, investing in us, and leveraging new startups here so that we can improve this environment in Brazil. So, and this environment is still growing. The market is going to adjust to it. And Brazil has been suffering with that. Why is the legal framework and regulation important? Because then you cannot have Sheikh of Bitcoin or the king of Bitcoin or companies that are going to affect thousands and thousands of Brazilians. So we have this company in Rio de Janeiro that use 4 billion, 2 billions. People are not standing that in Brazil anymore. I know it's hard to project in this uh, transition period, but the way you see it, what are your expectations? Do you think it's going to be regulated, approved? So, what's the best case scenario in terms of expecting a new regulation? All right, this project was an outcome of a debate with many in the parliament. So we have this special committee in Congress, and they have been doing that for 7 years intensively. So it's not something that just arises. We have been researching that for a long time. And the special rapporteur has been following up this since 2015. We have this commitment. We already voted that in the chamber, with then in Congress, and then we come back to Senate, and we had some smaller adjustments to the tax, some changes that still need to be debated. We just wrap it up, this text. So as a rapporteur and Congressman Expedito Neto, we have the commitment to vote this bill by the end of the year from this November to December because the rapporteur was not reelected. And then you'll be acknowledging the rapporteur's work for 7 years. So we're going to vote this bill, and then going to be put in force in Brazil. It's going to be approved, and I believe it's going to be a huge heritage for any government whatsoever to leave this legal framework on such an important and specific theme in terms of freedom. All right, Vanessa, in your law office, you monitor these regulations, right? And at first, we noticed that people were afraid of these regulations, to what extent it could limit the growth or not, or come up with bottlenecks for these developments. And on the other hand, that's everything that Congressman Alvarez mentioned. So what are the possible benefits that this regulation could present, and what concerns do you still have? Well, the way I see it, so we believe that regulation is going to be good for us. So we went through the same process with the payment market, and we had this legal milestone at the time. And we see the same thing happening with cryptocurrencies. So when we talk about this subject, we still feel a lot of insecurity. Like the congressman here just mentioned, we still we had and we still have many debates and frauds involving cryptocurrencies, and a lot of that is due to the fact that we don't have a good regulation. So once you regulate this market, you're going to present autonomy to the players that are actually serious and honest. So we believe that as you implement a regulation, you end up getting a largest approval rating for the product, but also our largest number of players wanting to get into this market. So you're only able to see that in a good way. Soeiro, okay, we have two Rodrigos here. So both of you Rodrigos are part of the market. So can you present in terms of what the regulations can present, but more than that, what's the role that cryptocurrencies can have or develop? How can they add value to society within the Brazilian context? That we have digitalized most of this process, right? We're on a different level when you compare to other companies. So we already have digital currencies, so it's going beyond that. How do you see that? All right, great question. The regulation for cryptocurrencies is welcome. But it's important to bear in mind that we have a very large challenge for regulators because it's a very dynamic market and it's a adaptable market as well. And sometimes you gotta go around some problems. So players will go around bend rules sometimes. So if the regulation is too restrictive, which is what's going on in the American market, you start to cast out some initiatives and talents like Alvaro mentioned. So it's important to be careful with that, to have this regulation that can actually foster this disruption that this market should present. So as you mentioned, adding value, we have some very important things to mention. So when we talk about cryptocurrencies as a payment method, the person that owns the store, they might be concerned or afraid of that. But in a way, is a way of receiving payments, which is very attractive or cost effective because the usual tax would be 4.5, they would go to a 1% tax. So it's a benefit, right? And we have other options. So it's important to highlight that the store's owner is not exposed to the volatility of the currency anymore. So companies that provide this service, they provide that by putting the owner in a very risky position. So this is just an example of how we can add value and the competitive value that we can present when compared to the traditional market. So the same disruption level has happened with investments and has been happening with transactions when we're talking about currency exchange. And it's something that needs to be reviewed once people have experienced this digital environment better. So if regulators do that in such a way to foster and attract talent, I think it's going to add value. Okay, great. Thank you. Now I'd like to hand it over to Rodrigo. He's part of Foxbit. So can you tell us how that can be integrated and create new leads, new cases? Can you give us an overview of how we can have new use case usages and benefits? Well, the first thing is we should demystify those things. We're talking about cryptocurrencies, and some people here are familiarized with those terms. So sometimes it might be distant from other business, but the PIX solution was inspired by another model, by a crypto transaction. So nowadays, I explain it, crypto transaction by showing PIX. So this has been developed over 10 years ago and it has proved to be safe. And nowadays, with payment, we see the adoption of this digital currency. So we know how this experience can be, and we're coming up with this payment solutions in cryptocurrencies. So showing that when you have large frauds, is when you're not actually being the owner of your cryptocurrency. And how about payment? If you aren't the owner of your cryptocurrency, you can carry out any transactions whatsoever to any person in the world that actually receive this type of currency. So it's basically having your currency regardless of it's in the bank or the exchange agency or in your cell phone. So it's a process that's going to make this much more accessible. It's hard to explain, but in the future it's basically about having the ownership of this currency, how you can use your own digital currency. So this is gonna be like a new PIX in which you don't rely anymore on banks to carry out your transactions, so regardless if you're in a bank or not. So you're gonna be able to have a similar transaction to what is a Bitcoin payment today in a safe and quick way and also transparent, because this process always help us with the transparency. So if you have fraud, it's because people are manipulating data or hiding transactions. But blockchain are transparent. They're trackable, and they can be monitored by anyone. So any solutions that are going to present this transparency and showing that you can move currencies around in a safe and quick way, This is what we're expecting in the future of digital currencies. And we mentioned that in the previous panel, each person is going to be able to select their own currency. So nowadays, Bitcoin is dominating this market. Everyone knows of it, but we have more than 21,000 cryptocurrencies actually. And the solutions is like Rodrigo mentioned before, is that everyone can pay their own way, and that the business are not exposed to those risks. So you can have this automatic liquidity rate. So you might be selling hot dogs with, without having to allocate that to a Bitcoin, meaning that you're not exposed to the risk. Or you can choose to be exposed to use Bitcoin as payment for your product. So it's about you being the owner of your own operation, doing it in your own way. It's going to be a revolution of payment. As I mentioned before, this DeFi and these new financial methods is about getting rid of intermediaries, middlemen, so we don't need to trust companies anymore, and trust that this company is in charge of my money. So Bitcoin is not up to anyone or to a middleman or business hours. It's something that is going to be transactional, and there is no going back. Something that you cannot revert because it has been safe, it has been recorded in the minutes, and cannot be reverted. So it's a lot of regulations. We also need to invest in safety for those who are doing that, but it's going to benefit the market and everyone to be safe and to be protected by some type of rules against fraud or illegal matters. So that's it.
That is really nice. So what is interesting here, it is about a new universe, right, that is unfolding, even though we've got the regulation for citizens through brokers and to convert into a currency, generate NFTs. It is totally out of the financial service with no intermediary agencies, no additional taxes. And also the health digital BBC, the central bank, upon the the regulatory, they bring it with the coins to make the institutions to generate tokens that will make it available considering this new integrated system. Complementary cases that, for instance, today PIX is not able to solve. So the combination of all of that, new possibilities, alternatives, and Vanessa, how will these things happen? The central bank, the different initiatives, and also the regulation. What is your expectation of this market? How is this market going to be evolved? How is it going to be developed? What can we expect from it to use it in a better way? Well, I don't know if you're following, but the virtual currency regular cost of the country. We have CBDC in different regions of the world. In Brazil, it is test phase. It has been uh, announced by the central bank. It is being tested, and it is the future. We can't say that it's about the future because there's the to make the market intermediary because it is about the lack of a financial institution. So, for instance, will I be able to have my own currency? So we have to evolve it. But what we perceive is that it is a global trend. Um, we have discussions with central banks, and there is also a project, a program that is called Nexus, the PIS, which is the settlement bank, and some countries are testing the international PIX. So it is a trend, and it can be in parallel with the CBDCs. So we have different things to evolve. It is not an internal discussion. It is a global discussions, and as a trend, it is a currency that is referred to the global scenario. So we will not, in the future, we will not need to change currencies. It's going to be very automatic. That is also considering the exchange market in all countries. I think that is our trend. Pix in Brazil is an absolute success in Brazil. Not even in countries in developed countries. Here in Brazil, it has been really good. The Pix, Brazilian Pix. Okay, so we have one initiative of the CBDC, the Nexo, and Brazil is participating. So I will be able to connect with 60 countries in a cryptocurrency, have this connection, and we have different alternatives. And also for Brazil, digital payments in cases that it is not being supported. And the Lift Challenge, we have the DVP test. So once you buy an asset, a real asset, a house, a car, a vehicle, so how is it going to be like? Do I pay first and I have it transferred, right? Even if you buy, for instance, an used vehicle, you need to have the notary department, and you have different taxes. So the DVP is going to deal with that with the blockchain. So if nothing happens, then the currency get back to you. There is also this experience, Brazil and abroad, to have these transactions. So there's also the dual of having the money in on my wallet. And for instance, today I just go to the underground and I'm able to buy the tickets, right? So it's also about the blockchain and different solutions as well that are very expensive, bureaucratic, and blockchain might also be good for it. For instance, Pix, I can transfer to a certain wallet and have the blockchain. The international transferring, how is blockchain aligned? Well, before that, it's important to mention because this reality of a cryptocurrency and bringing credibility, this is a reality, and I recommend people to participate in that in order to understand because the regulation is coming. PIX, the disruption is already happening. People are positioned on the market, and on at MONNOS, our users they are aged 18 to 25, and they don't even have money invested. So there is variations of currencies. For us to talk about international transactions, it's also a reality. And in Latin America, with the exemption of Brazil, there is 45% for small and medium-sized businesses. They are positioned in cryptocurrencies. And for instance, Visa conducted this survey, and that is very important. That is generating something. Visa, Master, crypto coins, cryptocurrencies. So what is valid is to mention that it is a reality. It is about convenience, easiness, and that way of thinking of losing money. Because once you start using it, then you see ways, pathways that are very reliable and very solid into the financial context. So it is important to mention that the regulation is going to come, and those who will be positioned will also be benefited. And for instance, an international transaction, you need to send the money to a bank, and the bank transfer to another bank, and oftentimes there is a third bank, so you pay many taxes, and uh, and the deadline is 1 or 2 weeks, and oftentimes you don't even know if you will receive the money, right? But with the blockchain, it is automatic. Yes, undoubtedly. Because if you have an international card, credit card, you have ATMs to have withdrawal with cryptocurrencies. And also, if you are going to go abroad, in practice, I'm sorry if I'm going to be rude, but understand it as an alert. You need to update yourself, right? You need to be up to date, and these currencies are available internationally. Yes, and it's more efficient. Um, how do you think that once we have the regulation, the market might grow and so on? Well, this is an increasing market. Regulation, it is about also legal. Many people want to participate, but I haven't seen any security in the Brazilian legislation because people don't know whom to contact. They don't even know how to contact legal, and the Brazilian government acknowledges it, and you can have a transaction of it. I've got to know some years ago when the federal revenue asked you to put it into your reports, into your tax reports. And for instance, if you go to the ATM and if you withdraw with the Bitcoin and or transfer it to dollar, um, you open this market to the whole Brazil. But there is this difficulty to understand technology itself because um, most of users they are aged between 18 to 25 years old, and we know that young people they are very up to date. So because in the past, for us to to even to know how to use a computer, we needed to take a course. But now kids, they are evolving even more, and they know they are very attached to technology, and it has been improving even more. So the technology made it to shorten the time, to have this legal security. For instance, if you go to McDonald's, you can pay using your app. So the evolution is very fast. And then you can, for instance, buy a house in a transaction. You don't even need you wouldn't even need to go to the notary department, right? So it's about the legal safety of it. It's about the asset owner, and then you will be able to change it without those bureaucracy. Because, for instance, it takes 30 days to have the execution of a transaction when you buy a house, a building. But then, with this new mode, it's going to be automatic. It is not a Brazilian solution, it's a global solution, but I think that Brazil can advance with understanding, and we can become a country that can attract more investments. But how can we attract more investments? We need to have legal safety. Because if you have a company in Brazil, and we were discussing about a bill or a decree from the central bank that doesn't allow the transaction, uh, and then you need to. It's,
So for you to establish it, for you to have those transactions, and if you have any doubt, you can recur to authorities here in Brazil. So I actually surfed a lot, and back in 2015 when I presented this project, the Brazilian society didn't understand what we wanted, and we evolved over time. So Foxbit was a part of some of the talks, and at first, something that we should highlight here is that we helped organizing the sector because we will work at Senate and we will help all of us, Bitcoin, Foxbit, and they were not talking to one another. So each of one of those were trying to organize their own sector, and then we said you should get together, come up with association and a single point of contact and a single topic, so that we can progress in this sector. And thus they did it. They created this association. They came together. They tried to debate with, to have talks with Parliament, and it's well organized these days, making it easier for them to understand it, but also to talk to Brazilian Parliament. And we have projects being presented in every city, every state of Brazil, and this legal framework, it has to be done in Congress and Senate. And as we were made responsible for that in the Congress, we know this is just the beginning, and we know that the regulation is going to be amended. And that's why we are not saying if it's up to the central bank or to CVM, because the way we see it, when it's up for when it's payment related, it's up to the central bank. But when it's investment, it's up to the CVM. So up to a point that Brazil was create this authority to regulate cryptocurrencies if necessary or required by this growing market. So the way we see it, we see that this market is going to be evolving very quickly, and we notice that this investment market, we're going to be getting out from it and getting into the payment market. So people's daily lives, and you're going to buy using crypto assets, and You know, like Brazilians know of these new innovations like an ATM machine for the transition, in which you have a bank account and you can have real currencies transformed into cryptocurrencies and vice versa. You can use the same credit card or debit card to do that, like we do today. And it's not just a single bank that does that. We have many banks doing that, making easier for a lot of companies to do that, like Visa and Mastercard, and it's going to be easier to make it popular and mainstream. So we're used to talking about Bitcoin, but we have many currencies, and I want to present my position now. I believe that when we have a digital Brazilian real, we're going to evolve a lot. We know that the currency bound, how it works. Do you imagine if all the municipalities and city halls start using this digital real so as you not to have corruption as it's known worldwide? Because when you start going digital, you know where the money went. So you don't have any financial losses, and monitoring that is much easier digitally. So let's say you send 1 million to a city hall. You're gonna know where this 1 million was spent. You can keep track of this financial movement. So this is why we're developing that to fight against corruption, fraud, money laundering. But more than that, presenting simplicity and easy to use for all transactions. So I'm a firm believer that Brazil is going to be innovative to that end. It's going to be debating with many other countries, and we're ahead of them when we compare, for instance, to the United States. We're really ahead. So we can leverage this and come up with and create a series of startups based on cryptocurrencies using the Brazilian creativity. So I went to Dubai, and Dubai created this very positive uh, initiative, which is a startup accelerator. So I visited this accelerator. When I got there, I saw it had two steps, and I saw two people speaking Portuguese, a person from the state of Rio de Janeiro and Minas Gerais, and they were working for the government of Dubai. They should be doing this here in Brazil, but as it's hard to regulate, to have this legal framework and look at startups for that, the government will have to do that. They will have to spearhead these innovations to foster this growth in Brazil. Brazil uses internet a lot. Brazil has more cell phones than actually Brazilians or citizens. It's a country in which you have children with smartphones, and you have everything that you need to have this digitalization journey. And you also have interest from Uruguay and Argentina, so we can be a local hub so that we can grow overseas. So I think we're moving the right way. I'm a firm believer of this bill is going to be approved and everything that we have mentioned here. Obviously, we have some controversial topics like the segregation between the Senate and Congress. So there are some silver linings, there are some downsides as well. So that's why the project went back to the Chamber of Congresses. So we're talking about El Salvador a lot, which is being a role model for us. So El Salvador is so small. So let's say Rio de Janeiro comes up with a currency. It's 3 times the size of El Salvador. So we can make easier for accommodation taxes or vehicle taxes. We can make people's lives simpler. We can make easier for people using Auxílio Brasil, a Brazilian subsidy, making it easy to use a Brazilian currency. And you see how Auxílio Brasil was important for Brazilian economy. It helped us during the pandemic, and how we can use a crypto asset that is bound and making people's life easier. So I'm very confident about our next steps in terms of global innovation. Thank you, Congressman. Rodrigo, I need to hear from you now. So we touched on purchasing real estate. Obviously, there is the issue of totemization. So you have the NFTs experience. Obviously, this is the beginning of the journey, but you have some very important applications of that, right? In the Brazilian citizens in daily life, like buying real estate. You can spread your investment. It can make your access really easy. As we know, banks don't have a lot of liquidity when you compare to that. So can you explain how this totemization process works, and to what extent this can make the Brazilian life easier? All right, good question. Well, in a nutshell, the totemization process is a warranty or at least a digital contract for ownership. So let's say you totemize a real estate. You can totemize that this real estate without hiring a broker or a lawyer, meaning that this transference can be done digitally, and you can see the transfer from João to Maria with no middleman, knowing that this was not frauded, that the signatures are valid. So these processes are making our life easier, and we don't have to trust in a specific part anymore. So if you're totemizing NFT or a concert ticket, you're not eliminating the seller, but you are eliminating the possibility of fraud. It might actually foster sales, like you could limit the amount of purchases and sales, but you're getting rid of the middleman or and phony documents. So this totemization process is going to be developed of totemizing tickets or ownerships or digital arts, like this monkey you mentioned, and even some benefits linked to that. So let's say that the owner of this little monkey has discount in my shop. So you don't need to prove it anymore. No, you can check that online. You're the owner of this monkey, so you have 20% discount. So it will make easier for us to validate certificates, obviously using the internet for that, so as to ensure ownership and processes. So this trust component is eliminated in a way. So cryptocurrency and totemization, they get rid of this need for a middleman. Once you complete a transaction, you are able to validate, monitor, and avoid money laundering. If an amount was transferred, you can check it and audit that. So it's gonna be make our life easier in the future. Can I comment on that? All right. So there is something that companies started to explore here in this totemization and NFTs world, which is the total migration of rewards programs. So these rewards programs, they linked us to this core of partners so that you can consume this mileage. So when you move to totems and NFTs, the liquidity rate will set you free. And then you can carry out transactions as actual money because other people would like to buy it, or because you want to sell and turn that into actual cash. So NFTs and totemizations will be one of the first applications in replacing rewards programs, and some institutions have started doing that. Nubank's initiative of emitting their own asset is moving that way. As for Mercado Libre, the totem that they started to issue, they started doing that for partners. So it's one of those applications and uses. It's one of the uses that present this transparency you mentioned. So we seen the potential that it presents to us, right? So obviously we're gonna have programmable cash, which is in our sandbox. So can you imagine how the public sector can use that for purchases, procurement, contracts, tender process? That meaning that you can program payments and you can track that the money. If the money is not used properly, you're gonna get it back. If after the deadline you don't have an auction or something that you have a specific deadline for that to actually be traded, you're gonna get back that amount. So the amount of resources uh, that were just scratching the surface. So all of this cryptocurrency and totemization processes and blockchain can benefit us. Obviously, we're about to wrap up. We're running out of time because we have a lot to debate. But the feeling is not only we're progressing, because we are, both in terms of this legal framework we mentioned, which is an outcome of 5 to 7 years of debate, participating in the market, and also contributions from civil society, and to see that we're actually pioneers in this process. The financial market is a pioneer, and this entire movement carried out by society in terms of the digitalization process that allows us to be bold and to transform society even further. And as you mentioned, we need to track and monitor this process and be a part of it, demystifying, which is a bit of the role of this panel, right? To be able to present those multiple benefits and make the most of these technologies, but also to implement this to reality. So I would like to congratulate all of you for being here. It was a huge pleasure to be the moderator of such brilliant people and to be able to share with the audience what we can expect in the future, uh, that has been growing and is going to become a reality. Thank you so much for your participation. Thank you for the invitation. It was an honor to be here. Thank you.